Hey, Odzi. I know I took a bit of a break, but I'm here. I'm ready for the next big event in One Piece. You know, after just taking a couple weeks off, I'm just like, let's storm the beaches in Normandy. Let's get something big. No, you are not ready. No, what do you mean, no? We are all not prepared for what's to come. Instead, you will enjoy setup. Okay, you know, that's fine, but usually you kind of do that at the beginning of an arc and you just take off from there. So I'm ready for that. This next arc, let's have some
No, son. This whole next arc is setup.
Wait, so what's to come is so big, there's an entire mini arc before it setting up the setup of the arc? What do you have planned?
It will be legendary.
Reverie, or Levely. There's a weird confusion with this arc's name I'm not entirely sure what to do with, but hey, the next arc in One Piece is the shortest I think I've ever had to deal with. They all blend, and it's really hard to keep them straight, but this one was special, because on face value, this is an arc I should pretty much just dismiss, because at first I was thinking, oh, this is filler. And then I realized this is absolutely 100,000% not filler. It is vital setup. And what Oda seems to be doing, without me having read Wano, which is currently going on, is having so many pieces he needs to put in the proper place that he's devoted an entire arc to being set up for his setup for whatever is to come, which has placed a feeling in me, the reader, similar to that of Chekhov's gun, but like on a structure level, where like he introduced the fact that he is confidently doing this much setup, and as a reader, I trust him so much that makes me go, oh, things are about to happen. Okay. And that takes a lot of established trust between author and reader for me to not be negative on this arc and instead it fill me with anticipation. Because after taking a break from reading a lot of One Piece due to recent events in my life, I'm sure you're kind of tired of hearing about at this point, I was really ready to go ahead and jump straight into Wano, and I had actually forgotten I still had this arc to go. And going through this arc made me feel exactly like the soldiers in Band of Brothers in the first episode who are like waiting to be deployed on D-Day, and they hear there's like a storm front moving through, and so they're delayed. It's that level of like,
something's about to happen, but it can't happen yet, and I want it to happen.
And while that was a very impressive feeling for Oda to have put in me, his reader, it does mean the reading experience of this arc is fairly average, and the enjoyment essentially comes to that meta level I'm discussing here without actually the content of the arc being super payoff filled, aside for some really engaging setup. It's to the point where the ending of this arc, I once again accidentally started reading the next because I was like, there's no way that was the, I've now read a little bit of the next one. I really do try to go into these arcs with just as fresh as possible without having looked at other reviews, doing a ton of research, just giving my raw initial reactions. It's why I occasionally get stuff wrong. I want this to be the true newbie experience. And what I can say from that perspective of this arc is I'm kind of giving up on trying to keep everyone straight. There's so many factions at play that at this point I just kind of have a vague idea of like, they're on that side, you're all on this side, and these people I'm not quite sure on, but they seem cool. Not that f that guy. There's a lot of that for One Piece as a whole right now for me. But let's go ahead and get into story-specific details for this arc that I do want to talk about and mention enjoying. First is kind of a joke where Luffy thinks he's actually been demoted in bounty value, but in reality, after beating I keep wanting to call him Cutco Knives. No, Kiri, words. He's actually been increased to 1.5 billion berries, which I've had explained to me by the fans is not meant to be a direct correlation to your feats accomplished, but instead how much of a threat you are to the government, which is something I definitely should have picked up on. That's my bad. That's why Enil is not sitting at like 1.5 billion berries and Luffy is, despite Enil arguably having been a bigger threat than a lot of the people we face. And having Luffy realize that, very funny. And I also like that apparently Sanji now has a higher bounty than Zoro, though I'm gonna go ahead and predict that's not going to stay the case, cause Zoro, like Sanji, you're cool and you got this new special suit and all, which I don't fully get, but I know is a big deal and probably gonna play a big role in the upcoming arc, but you're not Zoro. You'll never be Zoro. But I also had another one of these moments where it's like, this series is going to be coming to an end before too long, because Luffy's essentially reached as high as he can go. He's now an unofficial Emperor of the Sea due to the fact that he has this army that has a base and is functioning. He's made enemies with some of those powerful people. He's being dubbed an Emperor of the Sea, and it's... Let's talk about Escalation, because that might be, on a writing level, One Piece's greatest feat. Because without betraying these very simplistic characters, not in a negative way, just in what they are at their core and their intention, obviously there's a ton of nuance around that, One Piece has managed to take us on a journey where they went from just fighting little skirmishes here and there. I remember our little homie living inside of a box that was like one of my favorite little fun characters to get in, to now having foundationally shattering events take place, and the Straw Hats are at the center of it. Like, the whole world feels like it's now moving. The tides are shifting as the Straw Hats move, and they haven't transformed into these Goliaths. They're just believably capable of that because of the level of intense journey we've been on with them, and the very slow transition from ragamuffin crew into political heavyweights that are definitely a part of a cause now, and they mean something. It's just their intention on achieving this level of fame is very much so muddled, because you can't really say Luffy is like a political figure, but he has absolutely become a political figure. And it makes the maneuverings of someone like Blackbeard always feel so dangerous as he's going around in the background. I haven't talked about him too much, but all the way back since like Doflamingo and that arc, he's been just making moves and appearing, and you're waiting for that knife. And Luffy's kind of just sprint forward is truly like, it feels like it's a jeopardy with the way some people view him versus how he views himself, because you kind of want that naivety of him to go away and him to come fully understanding to the weight behind the factions that are working against him. But simultaneously, I'm not entirely sure he's not aware. That's the complexity of Luffy. He's just doing things and things happen, and no one sits down with him and is like, how do you feel about the nuanced political maneuverings of all these different factions and, like, you know, these high noble classes moving against you? Because he's just like, I'm hungry. And what's kind of fun about this arc is there's not too much more focus on our crew, and instead we're going to a lot of side and back characters, which I've said again and again, often Oda has crafted so well. They're earning of series in their own right, and we're just watching them come together and discuss not only directly Luffy, but all of these wider events that you won't get the perspective and nuance from our crew, because that's not where their focus is. It's like we're watching the wake of their path just change, and that's what this arc is focusing on, the wake of their actions. Because this crew is a Leviathan. The Expanse reference, haha, I read. We also then get Eam, and this I'm very unclear on, because Oda has done this before, where he's like, here's the shadowy players that are actually control, here's the shadowy players that are actually control, and it's always been like, they're pawns, but now, maybe just because I feel like we're finally getting to the end, there's this revelation of Eam and some people who work under him, and I'm starting to think, okay, these are going to be the people who are really like the ones pulling the strings. It's not the high noble class. It's not the little FBI, CIA crew. This is the one. But it's like, fool me once, because I'm like, maybe not. Maybe it's actually going to turn out to be, I don't know, Blackbeard. Definitely not. But, like, you know what I mean? There's just like a level of, I've been told the lies before. And thank God at this point, Oda realized, like, you might need a slight refresher on who these people are. Because at least in the volumes I read, I had these little tiny snippets of like, this is who this is. I know you probably don't remember, but this is who that is. It's pretty important. We then also get Straw Hat. And I'm not entirely sure what I'm supposed to think here. I do think back to the prophecy, obviously, of the straw hat wearer that's supposedly going to be the doom of an island, and that's gotta be what that is, because I've been wondering ever since then, you know, it wasn't Luffy, so what's it gonna be? Oda's not gonna leave a giant hanging thread like that, so it's gotta be this. So I'm liking the fact that all of this could tie back to Fishman Island, because I've been saying for so long, I want my fishy boys at the front and center, they're very interesting. It just goes to show Oda's, like, world building, where where you as an audience member are now like invested emotionally in theorizing in a giant straw hat may be predicted to destroy an island of fishmen. And that all makes complete sense. We also get some interesting stuff about submarines. I'm not really sure about the context of or how it's important, but I'm sure it will be, and on a reread it'll blow my absolute mind. There's also some stuff with world nobles. It turns out the one we've been dealing with, real name is John Quixote. I'm not mad about that. Cool reference. Oda's full of those. Literature. And we're actually given our first hints of like possible change in emotional depth to a Celestial, as well as the reappearance of this motherfucker who, for very obvious reasons, who probably gets the strongest emotional reaction out of me out of anybody. There's still a level of hurt with that face. You hurt me with that face. I keep wanting to call him Cuomo, as in like Andrew Cuomo. No. But Kuma is obviously going to have some bit of humanity still in there. There's no way it's going to be completely robotic cyborg because you can't really do anything with that as a character. And Oda's not going to, hamstring himself in that way unless it's supposed to be the tragedy of this person becoming purely cyborg, which if that's the case, I feel it. And I was actually thinking we were going to get flashbacks to finally fully contextualize his character, but it's still yet to come. That has to come in Wano, right? I'm predicting that now. We're going to get that in Wano, and that's got to be part of why people are so into it. Because Kubo finally suddenly like fully fleshed out. It's gonna mean a lot. Also, I was going to say, the whole idea of him essentially being a slave for rent to the world nobles just goes to underlie just Oda's continual usage of really dark stuff that you don't ponder too much on due to the tone, but One Piece is full of things that if you really think about are genuinely horrifying. And I don't just mean the way Luffy eats food. That in live action will be straight up horror. High pips. And I can't talk about an arc without talking about someone's devil fruit power. The fact that we have someone whose devil fruit power is largely like zinc from Mistborn is really cool. Like there's this person involved with the revolutionaries who I'm still not entirely sure how they're a threat in the grand scheme of things here. That'll become clear soon, I imagine. We just haven't seen like the same level of force or power from them, but there's someone who, they can like inspire others. And I'm just like, Zinc, Mistborn. And I want to end this talking about Shanks, because Shanks is someone who obviously has made tremendous impact on the One Piece community, and I'm very, eager to see how he's going to play a final role here. But his involvement kind of perfectly encapsulates how this arc isn't my favorite, because it's like, okay, he's here. It's like I'm a child who's looking at all the presents on Christmas, but I don't get to open any of them. I'm just like, I want to open it. I want it. So while this arc, I don't dislike it, my big question is, why wasn't this just folded in with Wano? And that way I could have just already had that arc, be read and done for you by now. But guess not. And why does this arc have 2 names? And if it feels like I'm not really talking about a whole lot of story or like catharsis and conclusion being reached in this arc, it's because there's not. It's just a bunch of setup. It's all setup. So I can't really say like, oh, this was a good utilization of that because nothing's resulting in anything. It's just, here's where things are gonna go. See you next time. Bye.